I got this great off-market deal from a wholesaler. Great neighborhood, great numbers. I was ready to buy this place, but then I found one thing that made me walk away. It would have cost me $20,000 to $40,000, and the wholesaler probably wasn't going to let me know about it. This entire neighborhood where this property was located was on septic. This property did not have city sewer, right? And in an area where I'm used to buying, almost every area, every neighborhood is on city sewer. There's not much, never does a property come up that's on septic. So if I hadn't done my homework, I would have ended up with a ticking time bomb that could have cost me 30 grand. So let me tell you exactly what happened, why it's a hard line in my buy box not to buy properties with septic, and why you cannot rely on wholesalers to protect you. That being said, this property was in a good area, it was in a good neighborhood, and it's so important to do your due diligence. You need to do your due diligence. And luckily, I was paying attention. I was there, I was inspecting the property, I was poking around the basement, and I noticed that the sewer line was going out the back instead of the front of the property. So I'm like, that's interesting. The sewer's usually in the front. What's going on here? Sometimes if there's an alley in the back, the sewer might be back there, but usually it's in the front. And this was more of a regular neighborhood, so there's no alley behind it. Why would it be going out back? Something's weird. And I go outside and I start poking around, and I'm like, I think this property's on septic, right? So I call up this wholesaler, I give him a buzz and say, hey, I'm kind of poking around here. Is this property on septic? He's like, oh yeah, it's on septic. I'm like, bro, maybe you should have shared that with me. It probably would have been good information. Probably would have saved me a trip because I don't buy properties with septic, right? But all that being said, it's so important to do your due diligence and remember that wholesalers especially are not going to protect you, right? They're out to make a few bucks. They're not out there to tell you everything wrong with the property. They're going to sit there and say, hey, I got this contract on this property. You want to buy it? Go take a look at the property and let me know. They're not going to do an inspection. They're not going to do that due diligence. They're just trying to make a quick buck on flipping the contract. And, right, realtors, while they should always be having a fiduciary responsibility to take care of their buyer, in every field there's people that are problematic. So that being said, always do your due diligence and don't always rely on wholesalers and agents to protect you. It's very important. So let me be clear that just because a property has septic doesn't mean it's no good. Doesn't mean it's not a property you want. I mean, there are areas where all you can do is get septic. I mean, septic is your only choice. But in my market, there's enough properties without septic. Pretty much almost every property except for this neighborhood doesn't have septic, right? So for me, I don't want to buy properties with septic because it's not within my buy box. And why is it not in my buy box? Because I don't understand them. I don't know how they work. I'm not an expert, right? But that being said, right, it's a great place for you to potentially, as a buyer, as a landlord, to niche in and get good deals, right? Because now if you say, you know what, septic's not an issue. I'm willing to buy properties with septic because I know what the inspection looks like. I know what the rehab, the renovation would replacement would look like. I know septics and how they work and what needs to get done with septic, and I factor all those numbers in and I'm cool with it. I might be able to now buy properties where a lot of buyers are going to say, septic, not for me. But if you're willing to buy septic, you may get deals that nobody else is going to get. Same thing goes for underground oil tanks, especially in New Jersey. In New Jersey, if there's an underground oil tank that leaks, it can end up being a huge liability. That being said, I know one investor up in North Jersey where they had a lot of underground oil tanks. They had so many people turning away sellers. They had wholesalers that are just like, I'm not going to get this property under contract because I don't think anybody's going to want to buy it with an underground oil tank. So this one guy that I know was a buyer, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to learn everything there is to learn about underground oil tanks. And he figured it out. He got the rules. He knew what the risks were. He knew how to check and how to make sure that he was going to be safe and what he needed to do. And he went out to all these different wholesalers and agents and said, hey, if you have a property that has an underground oil tank, I would be interested in buying it. That doesn't scare me. Let me know. And he got so many good deals because he was willing to niche into that risk. But for me, I'm not buying a property with septic. I do have my rules around underground oil tanks, and that's a story for another video. But that being said, the potential costs are real. A septic system is easily going to be $20, $30, even $40,000 to replace. They need to get pumped every couple years, and some municipalities. I was talking to a buddy of mine who has a couple properties on septic, and there's one township in New Jersey actually, and between every tenant, you need to get a septic inspection, right? So you can have a brand new septic, have a tenant there for 1 year, and now you need to get another inspection done, which is $500 to $800 plus, just to do a septic inspection, so that you could put a new tenant in on a property that has a new septic. The other big thing that scares me with septic, and a reason it's a big no-go for me, is you don't know, no pun intended, you don't know what kind of crap the tenants are flushing down the toilet, right? And when you have a septic system, it's very important not to flush things down the toilet that shouldn't go down the toilet, because it's going to get stuck in the leaching field, and it's crazy. So it's so important that the tenants don't put things down the drain that they shouldn't put down the drain. And having properties that are on city sewer, I know they do it enough. How many times do I have to send somebody out to get the drain cleared because there's tampons, there's panties, there's wet wipes, whatever. They're constantly flushing oil, grease. There's constantly putting things down there that shouldn't be going down there. And with septic, that could be a huge issue. So that's another reason for me that septic is a big no. But some guys, some landlords I know specialize it, and they're able to find really good deals because of it. So that being said, sometimes the hardest part isn't finding a deal. Sometimes the hardest part is walking away from a deal, right? It's easy to say, oh my gosh, the numbers are great, the neighborhood is great, it's not within my buy box because of this, but I really want the property, right? Sometimes it's better to walk away. Sometimes the willingness to know your buy box, know about know exactly what you're looking for, and being laser focused on that is going to help you so much. If every property that does not within your buy box that you come up against, you spend time, effort, and energy looking at it, evaluating it, figure out if it's a deal, you're not going to be able to, you're going to be wasting that time. And when the right property comes along, you're going to miss it. I just had a property come across my inbox the other day, just yesterday, and I called the guy up and I talked to him, and he tells me about the property, and wasn't within my buy box. No way. It was more because probably would be something that maybe you can fix up and flip. Never would make a good rental. Never would cash flow. It wasn't for me. So I told him, hey man, appreciate it. Glad you wish I could help you. This is not the property for me. And I was able to walk away on that and save myself a lot of time, effort, and energy. So that being said, I want to give you a few of the key takeaways that I'm thinking of from this video. So number one, due diligence. Make sure you do your due diligence. Don't trust the wholesalers. Don't trust the agents. And if you're new, don't be afraid to miss out on deals while you're finding the first right deal, right? Because as you grow and as you have more properties and as you have more reserves, you're going to be in a much better position to withstand something that goes wrong. If it's your first property or your second property and something goes wrong, it's going to be a lot harder for you to be able to withstand that shock of having a big $30,000 replacement of a septic or something like that. So make sure, especially your first properties, you're better off to pay a little bit extra, right? You're better off to get that inspection, get that financing, right? Make sure you put it together in such a way that you're protected, right? Don't be afraid to miss out on a deal because you're going to get an inspection, right? As you grow, as you get better, as you figure out how to raise private money, it's a lot easier to come in and say, hey, you know what? I can buy that property for $100 grand. Let's do it, right? No inspection contingency. Let's just get it done. I'm going to do a quick walkthrough. We're good to go. I've purchased properties sight unseen, but I'm able to get a really good deal because I'm taking into account everything that could possibly be wrong with the property and saying, hey, if you want this done, I can give you this amount and we're good to go. And we can close on this quickly and I'm going to potentially get a good deal. Right? Worst case scenario, the stuff that I think might be wrong or the worst case scenario comes out, but I've accounted for that in my purchase. It's really hard to do that when you're new, and it's really hard to do that when you're getting financing from a regular traditional bank. But if you go through the process with a realtor, with a with an inspector and getting bank financing, and you take your time, you very well, can, in that due diligence, make sure that you're not buying a dud, so to speak. So know your buy box. And again, septic is not inherently bad, but it is different. And you need to figure out what that potential niche is that's going to give you an advantage as a buyer, where a lot of other buyers are not willing to deal with that niche. And lastly, don't be afraid to walk away. Walking away a lot of times is a win. Sometimes it's the property that I didn't buy that was the big win, not the property I did buy. That being said, hopefully this video was of value to you. I put together a property checklist, right? So when you go to a property as a landlord and you're not for purchasing property, I may come up with a purchasing property checklist, but that could also be pretty long. But I have a property checklist that I put together when you visit your property, when you have your tenants in place. And this checklist is make sure, like, when you're at your property, you have this checklist with you, and everything that needs to get handled gets handled while you're there, right? So you're doing preventative maintenance. You're looking out for items that could potentially cost you a lot of money if they don't get handled soon, right? And also, like, just things that are going to prevent future service calls, right? And things that you can look for when you're at your property every time, right? Just to kind of keep things running smooth and be a well-oiled machine. Because the better you manage your property, the better your profit's going to be. So that being said, like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate it. Let's have a conversation in the comment field down below. And as always, I appreciate your hanging out with me for like almost 12 minutes at this point. I really appreciate the time you guys take to watch these videos, and I'd love to connect with you. And if there's any questions, just post them in the comments below. And again, I appreciate you watching another episode of Chat with Chatto.